This is India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. Let's start the show with headlines this Monday evening. First up, Bangladesh demands former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's return to Bangladesh and says that they want Sheikh Hasina back for the judicial process to continue. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar to visit the United States on a 5-day official trip. It will discuss key bilateral and global issues ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's administration that begins next month. President-elect Donald Trump keen on keeping the TikTok in US. A Chinese app TikTok was expected to be banned in the US on the 19th of January, but it looks like that there could be a rethink on that. South Korea claims North Korea is preparing to send more troops to Russia. Troops and weapons, including suicide drones, to be shipped to Russia to further support the war against Ukraine, alleges Seoul's Joint Chief of Staff. And big news in Motown as Nissan and Honda announced plans to join forces. Nissan and Honda will form the world's third largest auto company by sales. All right, viewers, we start the show with the big story that we are tracking today on, that is Bangladesh. The interim government in Bangladesh has sent a diplomatic note, that is note verbale, and urged India to send back former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to Dhaka. The 77-year-old Awami League leader has been living in India since the 5th of August when she fled Bangladesh amidst massive protests that brought down her government, and more than that, it forced her to flee within hours. The Dhaka-based International Crimes Tribunal has issued arrest warrants in name of Sheikh Hasina and several of her key ministers, advisors and former military and civil officials, accusing them of quote-unquote crimes against humanity and genocide. Those are very serious charges. Tauheed Hossain, the foreign affairs advisor in the interim government, has told reporters and confirmed that a note verbale has been sent to the Indian government asking for her extradition. And Mohammad Tajul Islam, the newly appointed chief prosecutor of Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal, has said that Dhaka will file an application with the ICT to ensure and issue an arrest warrant against Sheikh Hasina, who faces 51 cases. There are 42 related to murder, and she's governed by the extradition treaty that's been signed between Bangladesh and India in 2013 and then, of course, amended later on in 2016. But where does this leave the two sides, India and Bangladesh? What does it mean for ties? What can happen to Sheikh Hasina from here on? All those questions we'll try and address. But first up, listen in to the Bangladesh foreign advisor on the note verbal that has been sent to India.
আমরা তাকে যে চাওয়া হচ্ছে ফেরত বিচার ব্যবস্থার জন্য সেটা জানিয়েছি। না এটা নোট ভার্বাল দিয়ে। হ্যাঁ নোট ভার্বাল।
All right, let's get in my colleague Vishnu Shom to fill us in with the details. Vishnu, you connect the dots for us here. It's a very tricky diplomatic situation for India right now, and there are no easy answers at this stage. But you've been working up the phones. What are your sources in the MEA telling you?
Well, the External Affairs Ministry will respond because there is an official document, a note verbal, which has been sent from Dhaka to New Delhi asking for the extradition of Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who's been in India from the 5th of August. She's been a close friend of India, so India will need to really look at whether we are okay about sending her back to Bangladesh. There is an extradition treaty of 2013 between India and Bangladesh. There are clear grounds on the basis of which she can be deported from India, extradited from India. However, there is also a clause in that, and I've read that very carefully, which says that extradition cannot be allowed for purely political motives. However, subsequent to that, there is an explainer saying that if a person is involved in violent crimes or all sorts of crimes, then in fact that political factor doesn't necessarily have to weigh. So New Delhi needs to examine this judicially. Now, what is important, and I think here's the key point, if India chooses not to send Sheikh Hasina to Bangladesh, then it really could have a detrimental impact on the overall relationship between the two countries. On the other hand, Sheikh Hasina has been a great friend of India. She's worked that India relationship. There's a strong economic relationship, people-to-people relationship, the old historical cultural relationship as well. There are visas which people in Bangladesh want. So what does Bangladesh really want at this stage? Are they going to make the Sheikh Hasina issue a showstopper in the overall relationship between India and Bangladesh, or are they willing to keep that aside and pursue the overall relationship? That's something that needs to be looked at. And from Delhi's standpoint, what are the dangers over here? If we choose to allow Sheikh Hasina to remain over here, is there a real danger that the vacuum that exists in Bangladesh may become worse and be more detrimental to the relationship with India?
Absolutely. Thanks much, Vishnu, for filling us in with all those details. A story we're going to keep coming back to. But right now, let me, in fact, as we get in Salim Samad from Dhaka, and we'll get in Manju Seth as well from India, let me first tell our viewers the key questions that we are now discussing today in India Global about what's really unraveling in Bangladesh. When it demands Hasina's extradition, the questions that we are asking, will New Delhi yield to Dhaka's demands? As Vishnu was saying, as we've been talking about, what does this mean? There are no easy answers. Second key question that we are asking is where and the clauses of the extradition treaty, where there are exceptions, and how can that be applied or not right now? That's another question that we will come to. And the third and the very important and obvious aspect, will Sheikh Hasina actually get a fair trial in Bangladesh? Assume there are arrest warrants right now. Assuming the deportation happens, will she actually get a fair trial? Given what's happening right now in Bangladesh, the world is seeing how it's unraveling. It remains to be seen whether she will be given the legal and the due process that every citizen of Bangladesh should be given. Let's get in now Salim Samad to talk on some of that, and then we'll get in Manju Seth as well. Mr. Samad, thanks much for speaking to us, joining us live from Dhaka. I want to start by asking you, how critical do you think this request for extradition of Sheikh Hasina is going to be for Muhammad Yunus's government, and will it be central to its relationship with India?
Thank you for having me on the show. First of all, it is very critical. It will be very, there will be no decision in the next few weeks because Delhi will definitely have to respond to the Bangladesh request for extradition. But that's not important. The most important thing is that what you have mentioned, that whether Hasina will get a fair trial. So that is one issue. Personally, what I understand from the different government, officials especially, this is just a warm up. So there's nothing to fear. Delhi has nothing to fear about sending her immediately in this winter or after Christmas or whatever, because this is a warm up, and because Professor Yunus in one interview abroad, he mentioned that not very recently, that she would be actually tried in the ICC court in Hague. So obviously you can understand that the United Nations Human Rights Commission have already done basic homework and almost final with their investigation on the charges of crime against humanity, killing students of about 1,500 students and protesters. So that has been investigated by the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and of course they are doing not the entire year, but they're doing a sample size of 700. So obviously they will report to the UN, and that will be taken up in the ICC. So I believe they, instead of India may not hand over Hasina to Dhaka or Bangladesh right now. Maybe they will have to do it after the court starts hearing in Hague.
Okay,
she will be asked
have to do is a very strong word, Mr. Samad. Have to do is a very strong word, and I think that is where a lot of diplomacy and a lot of geopolitics really comes into play in terms of how you really word requests. Let's get in Manju Seth on that as well. I asked this question to Salim Samad about a minute ago, which is that how central will the demand for extradition be to Muhammad Yunus's government and his perception of the India-Bangladesh relationship? And that's a question I ask you as well.
I think this has, it's been spoken about right almost immediately after the Mohammed Yunus interim government took office, they have been saying that we will get her back and India should send her back, etc. And now they have apparently given a diplomatic note. But I think the extradition process, because we do have a treaty with Bangladesh, India does have a treaty with Bangladesh on extradition. And as per the agreement, I think there has to be a whole legal process to be followed. And there are certain caveats there and certain conditions which have to be met for a bilateral extradition. And there are some exceptions as well. So all the legal requirements have to be met. And if they were meant, what I read was that they're talking about the International Criminal Panel in Bangladesh, but maybe if it's the ICC, the International Criminal Court in The Hague, then that has a different. If that is the court, then that will be a different procedure altogether.
Yes.
But again, all legal aspects, all evidence, everything has to be followed before any such request is considered.
And that's a question. Okay, then let me ask you this. Manju said, let me start with you and then I get in Salim Samad, which is that, this is not an easy choice for New Delhi. At one end, you, of course, want a diplomatic relationship, which is really seeing a nadir right now to sort of recover to its previous time in terms of the India-Bangladesh relationship. And at the same time, Sheikh Hasina has been a very close ally of India so many years. So, so to say, for want of a better phrase, how do you go about throwing your closest ally out of the bus, so to say, for want of a better phrase? So it's not an easy choice for India, is it?
No, it's a very, very difficult choice because, it is something that we have been over the years, if you look right from the time that Bangladesh became independent, we've had a special relationship with Bangladesh. Even though there were changes in government, I recall even during when Mrs. The BNP, Khalida Zia was in power, even then we had fairly good relationships. Of course, there has been a little up and down throughout, but with the Sheikh Hasina government, it has been a special relationship, given that her father was, very, very closely interlinked or interconnected with India, and so was she. She was in India, as a matter of fact, when the entire family was killed.
Yes.
And she has been a friend. They have, addressed our concerns regarding terrorists in Bangladesh, and they've helped us with that. So I think she has been a trusted friend, and we cannot abandon her. So it's a very difficult choice. But if there are legal sort of requirements, we don't know how it's going to pan out. We don't know how the government will react to that. It's going to be a very difficult situation for us, and I think we should not abandon our friends. My personal view is, but legal requirements sometimes might compel us to do so. But if there is some exception and exemption, I think Delhi would look at that. India would look at that also. And whether all due process and due evidences have been...
Let me then flip the question and ask this to Salim Samad, which is that, just like it is a tough diplomatic position right now for India because of difficult choices, it's not an easy choice for Bangladesh as well. How much of the political capital the government and Mohammed Yunus wants to invest in Sheikh Hasina as compared to investing that in rebuilding the India-Bangladesh relationship? It's pretty much the same choice for Bangladesh as well and for Mohammed Yunus as well.
Thank you. Investment, when you talk about investment, it is very important that that India, Sheikh Hasina, as you have said, they're an ally of India or Delhi or the BJP government. She is a spent fuel. So once there is spent fuel, if you have a car and you just dump the fuel and then you have a new fuel. And if you have to do that, and if you are still pursuing with the spent fuel, it will be, this relationship between the two countries possibly will not take a new height. It is definitely taking height because Yunus has not been anti-India or haven't been very critical.
Are you saying he's not been anti-India? Are you saying he's not been anti-India? The kind of commentary that's coming from Mr. Yunus's closest advisors. The fact that one of his closest advisors actually had the gumption and gall to come out with a map which he later deleted. The fact that some of the minorities in India, in Bangladesh, are being subjected to treatment that many are shocked at in India. And of course, in addition to that, some of the other commentary that's coming in from closest advisors of Mohammed Yunus. Are you saying this is not all directed towards India?
No. You are picking a wrong thing. That map has been described by even by the Muslim League. in
I don't want to give
1905.
even a second of this
That
airtime
map.
to a map which is incorrect. I am not even giving a second of the airtime to that map.
That map has
Only
been
thing I'm
drawn,
talking about is the
redrawn
mindset.
several times. No,
I'm
you are
talking about
getting
the
it wrong.
mindset of the closest advisor of Muhammad Yunus. That's what I'm
Forget
trying
about
to
the
say.
advisor.
Nothing else.
Yunus doesn't. Now, Yunus, you have to listen to what Dr. Yunus have said. You have to be, not this Tom, Dick, and Harry advisors. Why are you quoting them?
Mahfouz Alam is his closest advisor. But
Well,
okay,
you have to,
let me again rephrase my
please-
question which I asked you, sir. Let me rephrase my question, which is that if India has a choice and difficult choices to make, Bangladesh is also staring at a very difficult choice to make. How much of Muhammad Yunus's time, political capital, energy he wants to focus on getting Sheikh Hasina back as compared to rebuilding his economy, rebuilding his society, getting his electoral roadmap back in place, and ensuring a relationship with New Delhi that comes back or resembles normalcy like earlier times. That's a choice he needs to make. Where do you think he will make that choice?
You have given a multiple choice. For example, like if you're talking about India right now, yes, there are trade relationships that is continuing with the relationship. The only thing is the connectivity, the people-to-people contact, the visa. India has totally, there's an embargo on the visas to the Bangladesh nationals. So you can understand, so nothing is working. So people contact, the people who are supposed to take medical care or students or any other people going for tourism or whatever, they have been barred. So the trains are not flying. You can understand the planes are not flying to India. And of course, the buses are also not flying. So there is a tension among the people in Bangladesh. The only thing would be that if India gives a positive indication that yes, Hasina could be sent back to Bangladesh, I can advocate that the relationship will immediately heighten up.
Okay, so relationship hinges on getting Sheikh Hasina back and getting,
Of course.
rather than repairing some of the other lost political ground. Thank you so much, both of you. I'm afraid I'm completely out of time, but this is a story I'm going to revisit simply because it is so fluid. There's so much that is happening. And viewers, before we slip into a break, the bottom line of what is unfolding right now in Bangladesh and the demand is very, very simple. And there is the Article 8 of the extradition treaty that lists out multiple grounds for refusal that India can actually apply, which can happen in the case that an accusation has been made not in good faith in the interests of justice. Article 8 can also be applied and refused in the case of military offences, which are not an offence under the general criminal law. And India has the option of refusing Hasina's extradition on the ground that the accusation made against her are not in good faith in the interests of justice. So there are options, there are difficult choices, but there are options. And the last thing I want to say is that beyond diplomacy, having a treaty means its legal provisions have to be satisfied, of course. But there are multiple examples of relations between two countries where pending extradition requests do not come in the wake of having a strong, robust diplomatic relationship. And that's exactly what New Delhi also needs to explore as it goes about rebuilding its relationship with Bangladesh. On that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side with lots more stories on India Global. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching India Global. We now turn our attention to what's happening in Myanmar, where the rebel army group, which is the Arakan Army, has struck yet another heavy blow to the military junta. The group has announced that it has completely captured the military's Western Regional Command in the Rakhine State. The attack on Friday marks the second time in 5 months that a regional military command has fallen to ethnic rebels. Myanmar's military, which has long struggled with insurgencies in its borderlands, has now lost key strategic positions, undermining its grip on power. Ann is a vital region. It is strategically important for military operations and located near critical port projects that are funded both by China and India. And since November of last year, when the Arakan Army launched a series of attacks against security forces, the Rakhine State has been in the throes of heavy combat. This conflict erupted after a ceasefire agreement broke down following the military coup in 2021. The Arakan Army's gains in the region have effectively cut off the state capital, Sittwe, from the rest of the country. The group has posted photos on social media showing a man they claim is the deputy regional commander of Ann in their custody. The latest development in Rakhine follows a series of military setbacks for Myanmar's junta. Last August, in fact, the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army captured the northeastern command in Shan State, marking the first time the military had lost control of a regional command in decades. The United Nations has issued a dire warning about the situation in this region, where ongoing fighting is driving the region towards what many say is economic collapse. As the conflict intensifies, the military's command and control continues to slip, and Myanmar's fragile future continues to remain more uncertain going forward. Okay, shifting focus now to probably the biggest story in the world of business coming in today, which is that Japanese auto giants Honda and Nissan have announced and they've agreed to launch talks on a merger that is seen as a bid to catch up with Chinese rivals and, of course, Tesla as far as the EV opportunity is concerned. And the JV will form the world's third largest automaker by sales as the industry undergoes a dramatic transformation in its transition towards EVs and, of course, those self-driving technology, which is why so many auto companies now need to shape up, or technology will make them obsolete. The two companies said they had signed a memorandum of understanding on Monday, and that the smaller Nissan Alliance member, that is Mitsubishi Motors, has also agreed to join the talks on integrating their businesses. We've got Mugdha Mishra joining us to decode this for us. She's NDTV's auto editor. Mugdha, tell us how significant this is in terms of auto industry, and how much will it reshape the entire auto landscape?
Well, it is quite significant, and it's most significant from our industry. When you look back, industry was primarily dominated by two factions. One was Europe and the other was Japanese, and a little bit of Korean and China. But now the situation is changing rapidly on the global front. China has taken a big leap in the last couple of years. We have seen BYD going much ahead of Tesla in terms of sales when you combine hybrid and EVs. So that's something that everybody's looking very closely at. And now Japan, with their clear focus only on hybrid, have been a little bit slow in going proper electric, and now they're trying to catch up. And it's not just electrification, it's also software. Japanese cars, we all know, are great hardware, the great engines, they will outlast everything, but they were never focused on software. And now the time has come when software is taking the lead, and you, of course, have to electrify, which requires a lot of investment, and then make your cars a lot more tech heavy, which again requires a lot more investment. And where will all this investment come from? It will come from companies coming together and putting their money together and putting all their hard work together to reach there.
Exactly. Technology making not just people but companies obsolete, which is why this mega deal is being finalized. Thanks so much, Mugdha, for really giving us a download on how auto industry is set to see a transformation. All right, on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side and talk more about what will be now Prime Minister Modi's game plan going forward, given that he's completed a circle of Gulf diplomacy with his Kuwait visit. We decode that after this very short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is India Global. We turn our attention now to India's Gulf diplomacy after Prime Minister Modi and Kuwait's Emir Sheikh held their first bilateral meeting on Sunday. The two countries elevated their relationship to a strategic partnership and signaled that trade and defense cooperation would form the key pillar of their ties. This came in on the day that Kuwait conferred its highest order to Prime Minister Modi for his role in strengthening the relations between the two countries. Modi's visit is the first by an Indian PM in 43 years to Kuwait. The last Indian Prime Minister to visit Kuwait was Indira Gandhi in 1981. Prime Minister Modi was accompanied by External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. At their delegation-level talks, the two Prime Ministers discussed a roadmap to strengthen the strategic partnership in diverse areas, including trade, investment, energy, defence, security, health, education, technology, as well as people-to-people ties. And we now ask the key questions that what really will be the next phase in terms of the Gulf diplomacy. But before that, listen in to what Prime Minister Modi had to say on this very important visit.
साथियों, भारत और कुवैत का रिश्ता सभ्यताओं का है, सागर का है, स्नेह का है, व्यापार कारोबार का है। भारत और कुवैत अरब सागर के दो किनारों पर बसे हैं। हमें सिर्फ डिप्लोमेसी ने ही नहीं बल्कि दिलों ने आपस में जोड़ा है। हमारा वर्तमान ही नहीं बल्कि हमारा अतीत भी हमें जोड़ता है।
All right, let's now get in some important voices to decode the significance of this visit and, more importantly, put this in the context of the Gulf diplomacy that has really taken a major step up under Prime Minister Modi's tenure in the last 10 years. We have with us Adib Shodaibar, who is the senior journalist joining us from Kuwait, and Raven D'Souza, the Times Kuwait managing editor as well. All right, we have with us Mr. D'Souza right now to talk more about the visit, its significance, and what really could be the next phase in terms of this roadmap going forward for Gulf diplomacy. Mr. D'Souza, thanks much for speaking to NDTV. Let me start by asking you your thoughts in terms of the significance of this visit, the takeaways of it, where there was a lot of focus on defense, on hydrocarbons, on business and greater economic partnership between the two countries.
Good evening. Thank you so much. The visit of Prime Minister Modi was a visit that set the tone for a great partnership, a partnership that will have very long-term substantial benefits. This visit has also turned a lot of talk in the past into action. Prime Minister Modi, in a nutshell, won the hearts and the minds of the leadership of Kuwait. An example was a 30-minute meeting with the Amir turned into a 1.5-hour meeting where a range of issues encompassing bilateral relations were discussed that went beyond just business ties, but it was about the historical relations and the friendship that India and Kuwait have been having for so long time. Yet there was a slight disconnect between the leadership in their meetings. So I think this broke the ice. It now has set the ball rolling. As you mentioned, defense, cybersecurity, these are just some of the things. But Kuwait is now at the probably the end of the Arabian Gulf visit, as well as his last visit to the Arabian Gulf, Kuwait. This opens up a whole new avenue of business opportunities for Indian businessmen as well as Kuwaitis to invest in India. An example is that for a long time the Chinese companies and China has had a larger footprint, and I think this visit now,
yes,
because traditionally, India has been a big partner of Kuwait, and this will open.
Let me come to the business aspect of it in a bit, Mr. D'Souza. Let me get in Adib as well in terms of the significance of this visit, why it is so important for Kuwait as well, because at the end of the day, India is a major growth engine, and it makes sense for Gulf countries, for Kuwait as well, to partner and engage more deeply with Kuwait, doesn't it? With India.
It does, absolutely. I mean, the thing is with India, and as I was talking to the editor when he spoke on the phone with me yesterday, I mean, the links between Kuwait and India are historic. It's something that goes back decades, from the time of the rupee being here to having, the Indian food, the Indian culture from the early days of Kuwait's discovery of oil and before. So it's always been a big player, basically, in the region, India, in a different way. But I think now we're going into a strategic level where Kuwait has signed this strategic partnership, which is a defense partnership. The Gulf region, of course, is an economic powerhouse, predominantly perhaps for oil, other than Dubai, which is more mixed. So, I mean, you're looking on a different level, the partnership, it's cultural, but I think it's also going into the big league now. And it's time for that, to be honest. It's great to see India going even further out into the world. It's one of the leading economies of the world now. So, yes, definitely, there is a change in the game. And the strategic partnership, definitely. And I think looking at the vision of 2035 Kuwait, which is the Solar Alliance as well, getting Kuwait into more green energy. I think India will be able to help a lot with that, because like the airports in India are all covered with solar panels. India has a lot of experience with that side of it.
In fact, that's an area I wanted to talk about in detail in terms of the significance of Kuwait being part of the International Solar Alliance, the role that India can play in terms of the solar energy and the solar energy roadmap for Kuwait and maybe for the entire GCC as well. Mr. Adib.
I think that's a very good idea. I always feel we should do much more with solar, because basically our climates are very similar in a lot more, not all the parts of India, not when you go up further north, of course, but generally we do have a lot of sun. As you do, so do we. So I think it makes so much sense. Solar panels are very easy, known technology. It's nothing brand new. And it's something that can be adapted fairly quickly and easily, to start with, to deal with these greenhouse effects we're talking about and climate change. It is one good way we can start. Yes, I hope that moves forward as well.
And Mr. D'Souza, then let me ask you this in terms of the opportunities that you think could probably stand out from a business point of view.
Kuwait is on the threshold of big mega projects to be announced in the coming years as part of their 2035 vision. I think Indian companies can do well. Prime Minister mentioned green energy. He also mentioned the infrastructure development. And I think the potential is limitless. And it really is, let's say, at the decision of the top leadership who have been very acceptable to this idea of bringing more Indians and more Indian companies. Anyway, we are the closest to Kuwait. If you see geographically from the west to the east, India is the closest. They are our extended neighborhood.
Yes.
So it makes complete sense for them to do business
Absolutely.
and trade and everything else.
There are strategic interests, there are geographical opportunities and advantages. And before we wrap this up, Mr. Adib, let me ask you then about the defense partnership. That's likely to be the other cornerstone of this relationship, isn't it?
It is. That is something very new. It's good. It is nice to see that you have a strategic partnership, which we have a lot with Western state nations as well. But having India in this is definitely something different, something new. And I'd love to see how that pans out. India has a lot of defense technology as well to export and people can learn from. There has been a lot of different things in this visit. I remember I was talking to friends the other day about the last visit, which was, I think, by Indira Gandhi, which was back in the 70s or 80s, was a long time ago, the last Prime Minister's visit. Of course, there have been many high-level visits since, but not to the Prime Minister's level. So, yeah, it is historic in that way. It's been good. It's good to see India in the region.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking to me on NDTV's India Global, where we talked about Gulf diplomacy of India. And hopefully next year in 2025, we will only further strengthen on this momentum. Thanks much. And on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side, talk more about US President-elect Donald Trump's interest in keeping TikTok alive in the US. What does it mean? Stay with us. We tell you that after this break. This is India Global. We now turn our attention to the Trump Tracker segment on the show, where we get you the latest in the countdown to President-elect Donald Trump's administration. And the latest that's coming is that the President-elect has hinted at keeping TikTok, the Chinese very popular app, running in the US, at least for now, citing the billions of views his campaign raked up on the platform. Speaking at a news conference, President-elect said that he had a warm spot, quote unquote, for the app thanks to its role in his campaign success. TikTok's future in the US, though, remains uncertain. Back in April, the US Senate had overwhelmingly passed a law requiring ByteDance, which is the parent company, to divest the app, citing serious national security concerns, which were related to data, in fact, being collected of US citizens. The Justice Department backed that stance, calling Chinese control of the platform a potential threat, with bipartisan support from lawmakers. ByteDance is fighting back, and the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the case. But if the court rules against the company and no sale takes place, TikTok could face a ban on the 19th of January, a day before President-elect Donald Trump is set to take over in office. In fact, despite his support for TikTok, it's now unclear how Donald Trump might undo the law and the order if it comes into effect just a day before he takes office. Take a look at this soundbite, in fact, he gave about TikTok.
So I'm going to have to start thinking about TikTok. I think we're going to have to start thinking. Because, you know, we did go on TikTok, and we had a great response with billions of views, billions and billions of views. They brought me a chart, and it was a record, and it was so beautiful to see. And as I looked at it, I said, maybe we got to keep this sucker around a little while, you know. Who wants to?
Another story in the Trump Tracker segment, the President-elect has called for the Panama Canal to be returned to the US in terms of getting control if Panama doesn't manage the waterway to his liking, accusing the country of charging excessive fees for ships passing through that vital ocean link. Donald Trump's message is clear: lower the rates or hand over it back to Washington. But that's not all. Donald Trump has also reignited his controversial push to buy Greenland, calling it an absolute necessity for the US. Greenland, which is rich in natural resources and geopolitically significant, is part of the North American continent, but remains under Denmark's control. This isn't the first time that the President-elect has floated this idea. He did so in 2019 as well, during his first term, where he publicly expressed interest in purchasing Greenland, sparking a major backlash from Denmark's leaders. And then Prime Minister had shut down the idea, firmly stating that Greenland is not for sale. All right, let's now turn our attention to another story where US President Donald Trump has appointed Indian-American entrepreneur and venture capitalist Ram Krishnan as the senior White House policy advisor on artificial intelligence. In a statement, Donald Trump said that Krishnan would shape and coordinate AI policy across the government. In fact, this is yet another high-profile appointment in Donald Trump's administration from the Indian-American community. And Ram Krishnan was born in Chennai. He developed mobile ad products during his tenure at Facebook. He's also a general partner at one of the leading venture capital firms. And my colleague Sam Daniel, in fact, spoke to Ram Krishnan's professor in Chennai after this announcement came in. Listen in to that very interesting conversation.
Tell me, when he was a student there, did he show signs of promise that one day he'll be a kind of an authority in artificial intelligence? What did you at that time make out?
Yes, when he was admitted into SRM, he was very new to computing technologies and programming languages. But after he joined here at SRM, he learned a lot along with the faculty and the peer members of SRM. He learned a lot and he got interest in the computing languages. So that time he learned Python programming languages on his own, and he shared his knowledge with the faculty members like me. So he was recruited by Microsoft directly after his undergraduate studies. So means he was into that new technologies by that time itself. he was very interested in learning new things on his own, because being the curriculum and regular class things, it is common for all the students. So the teachers need to teach the common core subjects like computer architecture or operating system, something the basic for the computer science and engineering for all the students. He was into the innovative kind of learning new things, new technologies on his own.
Now, he joined Microsoft soon after graduating. He also later worked for Facebook, then joined Elon Musk's team working for Twitter. Did he ever visit back his alma mater? Did he speak to students?
Yes, many times. He loved to come here and to meet the faculty and his juniors. So he met many times at SRM campus itself, and he has given the seminars and sessions for his juniors. He motivated how to learn along with ethics and with our cultural background, how to become the technologist and how to achieve in this computing field. So he was very much interested to interact with the faculty members, and he loved to come SRM campus. And there are many interesting points he introduced in our campus itself. What is this point, the name of the campus, some kind of the meeting point or the discussion point and the project point, something. He introduced many points or the names for SRM venues.
All right. Shifting focus now to a very important story where India is deploying AI in its battle against the world's worst tuberculosis epidemic, where over a quarter of all cases, unfortunately, are in India. India has invested millions in a national campaign to curb the disease, reducing its incidence by 18% since 2015. But diagnosing and treating the disease is a complex, lengthy process, and which is why now there is an Indian non-profit organization, that is Wadhwani AI, which has developed a suite of AI-powered tools to assist health workers detect undiagnosed cases, decide on treatment plans, and prevent people from dropping out of treatment, most important. And working with the Indian government and the US Agency for International Development, the organization is currently piloting these tools across the country. Let's get in a representative, in fact, the CEO of Wadhwani AI, Shekhar Subramanian, joins me on the show to really understand and decode for me how technology can find solutions that medical practitioners around the world, around India, have been grappling for decades. So explain to us the significance of AI and the role it can play in terms of really becoming solutions and providing those solutions that medicine is searching answers to.
Certainly, thank you. AI as a technique, AI is one of several technology-oriented techniques that can be integrated into any system, any ecosystem. Particularly with the health ecosystem, it's a very good idea to make sure that you integrate AI in a very intelligent manner into the system. So when you speak about TB, there are multiple aspects within the ecosystem in the manner in which the disease comes, it spreads, it can be controlled, and it needs to be managed. AI, as you know very well, offers what we call point solutions. It offers intervention at every stage. And the way we have analyzed and understood the problem with respect to using AI in such an ecosystem is that if you do it in multiple parts of the ecosystem, the cumulative effect will be quite significant. So I'll give you some example. The first area is to just make sure that you can capture or catch what is popularly known as the missing million, or what is called as the individuals who we need to get into the treatment regimen. And so one of the solutions we have, and it's a very difficult one, is to capture TB patients using a cough signal. Now, there are two ways you can implement this. One is in a facility setting, which we were very successful, but to do it in a generic community setting is a complex and difficult problem. So we are working with the Government of India, the CTD, to roll this out pan-India. So this is an example where we would like to find out if a person has TB, and then if they have it, then you can move them into the cycle so that they can start getting treated. The second, which you mentioned, is what we simply call loss to follow-up. And essentially what that means is when a new patient comes in for treatment, we need to give them, say, a risk score between 0 and 100, a higher score meaning a greater propensity to not follow the medication. And if they don't follow the medication, 3 very adverse impacts happen. There's mortality, there's a higher cost for treatment, and there's a possibility they'll spread the disease.
That's a very important point, sir. So let me just come in there, because this is important, but I also want to sort of make it in a manner that a lot of our viewers also understand, and a lot of viewers are not that savvy in terms of technology. I am not. So I'm going to just ask you simple questions in terms of how significant this is. First and foremost, in terms of your response so far, you've been dealing with Government of India, and so far, what has been the response like to this program in terms of the success, in terms of the scale, or the problems that are very unique to India that you need to find solutions to?
Multiple perspectives. So the first is that we started on this mission with the Government of India before the wave of Gen AI, etc. So this is your classic AI-related problem solving. And we were with the government from 21 onwards. And the government has been a very effective partner. In other words, if we want to, our mission as an institute is to scale solutions in India. And the only way you can do that is to really be part of the entire ecosystem that actually solves problem at the ground level. And so the Government of India, particularly CTD and Health, Ministry of Health, all the ministries, we work in multiple ministries, agriculture, education, health, we are present across. There are multiple things. One, there is a significant recognition that there is a possibility AI will solve problems. Then they're looking for partners who can provide them credible solutions on the ground. This is away from instances where we kind of talk about AI. The idea is we actually provide the solution that can be used. In my personal opinion, there is nothing more important in India than actually creating solutions that can be experienced and used. AI is one subject that you will learn by doing. So the more we do, the more we implement, the more we learn. And by its very construct, it will get more data. When it gets more data, it gets more intelligence. So how do you solve that conundrum? You work with the government.
Indeed.
They did the data collection for us. They help us reach out to all the states, etc.
Yes.
We bring the technology pieces. We have to integrate with their programs. We have to take the responsibility of making sure our AI is credible, it's real, it's responsible, and it's in pace with the pace at which the government can adopt it for an effective solution. You cannot just get excited. You have to work within the construct of what can actually happen in a country as diverse as India.
As diverse, as large as India. I'm afraid I have to interrupt you there, Mr. Siva Subramanian. Thank you so much for talking to us about what I really hope is probably one of the most successful stories in terms of how AI can be used to solve some of the most complex problems that mankind faces. Thank you so much. I'm out of time in this conversation, but wishing you the very best in this program. And on that note, completely out of time in this edition of India Global. Thanks so much for watching.